All right, so we are doing lesson 7 today. And in today's lesson, we are going to talk about how we can generate a polynomial if we know what the x-intercepts are. So we know from the past that an x-intercept, x-intercepts are the points where a graph of a polynomial passes the x-axis. And we've talked about that before. So if I know what those x-intercepts, we're going to learn about how we could figure out a polynomial that has those x-intercepts. So we do that, as it says here, by converting each intercept to a factor by switching the sign. So for example, and I give several examples here. Okay. I gave several examples here. So if I have an x-intercept of -1, I convert it to a factor by switching it to +1, and the factor would be x plus 1. If I have a positive x-intercept, so say my x-intercept is +3, then I convert it to a factor by changing the +3 to a -3, and thus the factor becomes x minus 3. If I have an x-intercept of 0, then my factor is simply x, because it would really be x minus 0, which is just x. If I have, this is really important, if I have a x-intercept that is a fraction or a decimal, in this case I gave an example of a x-intercept of a half, I could make that minus a half, x minus a half, but very often you will not see that. Very often what they'll do is, for example, because the denominator in the x-intercept here is half, so 2, what they'll do is they'll actually multiply each term of the factor by 2. So 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times negative a half is -1, and we get a factor of 2x minus 1. So basically, if you have a x-intercept that is a fraction, we convert it to the factor initially, like the x minus a half, and then we multiply everything by the denominator. In this case, the denominator was 2. So with that in mind, let's look at the examples. Okay. So write a polynomial in factored and standard form whose x-intercepts are the following. So let's take a look at number 1, 10, -2, and -9. So because there are 3 x-intercepts, there are going to be 3 factors. So the first x-intercept is 10. So to convert that to a factor, I am going to switch the 10 to a -10, and thus the factor becomes x minus 10. For the second factor, and I'm going to switch the -2 to a +2 and make the factor x plus 2. And then for the third factor, I'm going to do the same thing, except now I'm going to change -9 to +9 and thus make the factor x plus 9. So in the directions, it says to write the polynomial in factored and standard form. So this right here is the factored form. Okay. And to convert it to standard form, we're going to go back to what we've learned previously. So we're going to I'm going to take the first 2, and I'm going to use the box method. So I'm going to say x minus 10 and x plus 2, and I'm going to multiply that out. So x times x is going to be x squared. Let's see, -10 times x is going to be -10x. 2 times x is going to be 2x, and 2 times -10 is going to be negative 20. So when I write this out, I'm going to get x squared. And then I have negative 10x and positive 2x becomes negative 8x. And then minus 20. So that's the answer when I multiply the first two. Now I'm going to take that and I'm going to multiply that by x plus 9. So I'm going to do the box method again. So up here, I'll do x squared minus 8x minus 20. All right. And then on the side here, I'll do x plus 9. And we'll do the same thing. So x times x squared. Okay, remember we add the exponents, so that's going to be x cubed. X times negative 8x is going to be negative 8x squared. Okay, x times negative 20 is going to be negative 20x. And then bottom left, we have 9 times x squared is 9x squared. Okay, 9 times negative 8x is going to be negative 72x. And then negative, negative 20 times 9 is going to be negative 180. Okay, and then we'll write out our answer. So our answer will be x cubed. 9x squared and negative 8x squared becomes positive 1x squared. Okay. Then we have negative 20x and negative 72x. So negative 20x and negative 72x is going to be negative 92x minus 180. Okay, and this right here is the standard form. Okay, so we've answered the question. And the good thing about this is we can then take that polynomial, x cubed plus x squared minus 92x minus 180, and we can actually graph it in Desmos to check and make sure that we're right. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So we have x cubed plus x squared minus 92x minus 180. Okay. And if we look, let's zoom out just a little bit. If we look at where the x-intercepts are, we have an x-intercept at 10. That's where we started. We have an x-intercept at negative 2. There we go. And we have an x-intercept at negative 9. What's going on here? Seems like, okay, there we go. And an x-intercept of negative 9. So we know we are correct. Okay, so let's look at number 2 now. All right, now we're going to do the same thing. All right, so for our first factor, all right, our factor is going to be x minus 7, switch 7 to negative 7. Okay, our second factor is going to be x minus 1. And then our third factor is going to be x plus 1/4 initially. But just like we saw in the lesson notes, let's go back to the lesson notes. I'm going to take that factor, I'm going to multiply everything by that denominator. In this case, the denominator was 1/4. So I'm going to multiply each term in this factor by 4. So 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times 1 over 4 is going to be 1. Okay, so the third factor is going to be 4x plus 1. So this right here, okay, this is our factored form. And then we're going to do the same thing that we just did. All right, so let's multiply the first two out. We'll set up the box method. So x minus 7 and x minus 1. Okay, x times x is x squared. Then this will be negative 7x. This will be negative 1x. And then this last one will be negative 1 times negative 7, which is a positive 7. So if we put this all together, we end up with x squared. And then negative 7x and negative 1x is negative 8x. All right, plus 7. Okay. Now we'll take that and we'll multiply that by 4x plus 1. So we'll set up the box method a second time. All right, and we get x squared minus 8x plus 7. Okay, and then 4x plus 1 down here. And let's go ahead and multiply this out. So 4x times x squared is going to be 4x cubed. 4x times negative 8x, that is going to be negative 32x squared, right? And then 4x times 7 is going to be 28x. Okay. The second one will be easy because 1 times x squared is x squared. 1 times negative 8x is negative 8x. And 1 times 7 is 7. So let's put this all together. And we have, let's see, we have 4x cubed, negative 32x squared, and positive 1x squared. Okay, positive 1x squared, that's going to be negative 31x squared. 28x and negative 8x becomes positive 20x, and then plus 7. So this right here is the factored form. Okay, and once again, I will put that answer on Desmos. I will put that answer on Desmos. Whoops. So 4x cubed minus 31x squared plus 20x plus 7. And let's check the x-intercepts. We have an x-intercept at 7, right? We have an x-intercept at 1. Okay. And we have an x-intercept at negative 0.25, which is the same as negative 1/4. So we know we are correct. Your cooldown tonight is just going to be one example, just like we did, just a couple, just different numbers.